Bonjour et bienvenue à Gourmet, the channel where I cook my way through all the cookbooks I own and have never used. We are still working with Start Here by Julia Child, where we'll be making Carbonnade à la Flamande, or beef and onions braised in beer. This one's probably a little simpler than the last ones that I've made, but I really just wanted something easy for dinner tonight, so that's what we're gonna make. I think it'll be good. I don't think beef braised in beer is going to taste bad at all. So let's get started. We are going to need 1.5 pounds or 6 cups of sliced onion. I just got yellow onions from the store. Nothing serious. I'm not going to make you guys watch all this. We have chopped so many onions on this channel, but I just kind of wanted to, as I'm getting the onions ready, go through and kind of talk this one out. Maybe if I can peel it. Oh my gosh, I might sacrifice a layer of this onion just to start things. Okay. Sorry, onion. What we're going to do is we slicing our onions first because we need to brown the beef for this recipe. And then once we brown the beef, then we'll cook our onions in that browned beef pot and all the juices and everything. So that's why I'm starting with the onions. They're technically the second part of the recipe, but we all know mise en place is important. So as much as I don't do it on this channel all the time, I try to do things in a more logical order than the cookbook will say sometimes. But yeah, so we're slicing our onions. I probably did buy more than a pound or 1.5 pounds of onions. But there just wasn't the best selection of onions at the store, so I wasn't really sure what I was getting myself into. There we go. But yeah, see, like this is a weird onion. Super thick outer layer. But yeah, that's what we're doing. I'm gonna have to chop that. I'm gonna want to chop that off just a little bit. Get some of that older skin off. Slice this one down the middle. There we go. I guess I'll get back to it when we're ready for the beef. You know, you guys don't need to see me chopping onions for the 18th time. Okay, so now we're ready for the next step since we've chopped our onions. I have some pre-cut beef chuck roast here. I just bought this from the grocery store. And we're just going to add this in. We have beef tallow that's gotten hot in our pan. And what we're going to do is we're just going to brown these guys. So I'm just adding in, I'm trying to add just like enough for one layer at a time. We have over 2.5 pounds of this chuck roast. The recipe does call for a 3-pound full chuck roast or beef rump, but it was going to get cut up anyways, and I thought, why bother cutting it up when you can buy it pre-cut? So that's what we're doing. I think we'll leave it here. We're going to get these guys super nice and brown on every side, and then we're going to set them to the side on this plate. And once we're done with all 2.5 pounds, we can move on to the next step. This one, nothing goes wrong with browned beef, beer, all those sorts of things. Super delicious. I'm literally making this on a Friday night for my dinner. So I'll probably, get some really good leftovers out of this, which I'm excited for. But yeah, we've got this pan super hot. I've turned it down just to about like a medium-high heat. Our oven is preheated at 325, so because we are going to end up putting this in the oven for a couple hours. So that's why I wanted to do it. I'm actually doing this during my work break because, I thought that way it's at least ready for dinner. Looks like we're not quite ready for turning yet. But we're definitely getting some nice color. We don't want to cook these all the way through. We just want to get that nice brown on them. Some of them are ready. Well, none of them are ready. But I accidentally flipped those two over. But we're getting close. This will just take a few minutes at a time for all of the beef. So we've just finished braising or browning our beef. I have half of it here on this plate. Looks delicious. The other half I have in this Dutch oven ready to go because we're supposed to transfer all of this to a casserole dish, and I just don't own one of those. So I use my Dutch ovens like a casserole dish sometimes. What I am going to do is add a little bit more beef tallow. Oop, that was so loud. I'm sorry. We'll get this off. There we go. Come on. There we go. So I've just added a little bit more beef tallow. Now we're going to cook our onions. Like we said, we already had them pre-cut. So these are just going to go in. Oh, that was hot oil. Okay. And maybe there's a better way to do this. I don't know. And I know, like, this is a lot of onions right now, but they will, you know how onions are. They cook down a lot. So let's get these guys going. I'm just going to wash my hands real quick. Now that we've dealt with the slight oil burn and I guess fat burn, it's tallow, and we've washed our hands and all of that, I'm just going to kind of stir these onions a little bit. I might end up adding a little more beef tallow in. I'm going to bump up the heat just because I had it on kind of low. And now I'm going to salt and pepper these. The recipe does say to wait until they're cooked to salt and pepper. And if you notice, we didn't actually salt and pepper our beef. Since we're salt and peppering this step anyways, I don't see an issue here. You know, I do try to follow the recipes as close as possible, but sometimes I disagree with what they're doing. But I think these will be good. I'm just going to bump this up again. Remember, we're really trying to cook these down all the way. And what we're going to do is we're going to layer the beef and the onions when these are done cooking. So half of our beef, like I already showed you, is in here. And then we're going to put half of the onions on top of that. And then we'll do the same thing again. You guys are probably like, there's an onion. And then we'll do the other half of the beef and the other half of the onions. So yeah, I guess I'll see you guys when these onions are almost done cooking. Here we are with our onions almost finished. We've been cooking them for just about 10 minutes. You can see that they've cooked down quite nicely. Really nice and getting nice and caramelized. So I have salt and peppered these already. I'm just going to turn the heat off on this right quick. And we're going to add in 4 cloves of mashed garlic. Now, what I'm using instead is just some pre-minced garlic, but I think I'm going to go ahead and just use all of it because this is essentially, ooh, that's a loud sound. This is essentially going to be our 4 cloves. Okay, we'll set that to the side. And I'm just going to stir in that garlic really quick, just get it heated. But I gotta say, these smell quite delightful. Now what I'm going to do is take half of these onions and put them on these. I'm just going to eyeball half. It's not going to be perfect, but we're just kind of layering this. It's supposed to be done in a casserole, like I said earlier, but I'm using my Dutch ovens. I am going to try to save all of this that I can. Now I'm going to take this, pour these guys on top, and get them kind of in a nice layer. I'm going to set this to the side. And then I'm just going to scoot this over and finish our onions. I actually might grab a spoon real quick. I think that's going to be faster for what we want to do next anyways. Got my spoon. Ugh. These smell and look delicious. Okay. Now we are going to go ahead and in this pot, let me get one more scoop of onions out. Perfect. In this pot, I am going to read the recipe real quick. I'm going to add a cup of beef stock. I just have this Swanson. I just got a Swanson beef stock. It was cheap. I'm just going to eyeball a cup. That's close. And then we're going to heat this back up. And what we're doing is trying to get all of that brown goodness off of the bottom. We probably won't get all of it, but that's okay. What I am going to do with this pot, though, is whatever I don't get out, one of the serving suggestions for this was buttered noodles, and that's what I decided to go with. It was buttered noodles and potatoes, or like buttered noodles or potatoes, sorry. And I thought, buttered noodles sounds right up the alley tonight. So that's what I got. So I'm going to actually make my noodles in this pot when I'm finished and ready for that step. So whatever doesn't get out is going to go in the noodle cooking liquid and hopefully flavor our noodles a little bit. Really, I'm just trying to get in as much of the onion from the side as I can at this point. And I think that's going to be just about it. This is a pretty hot pot. So I'm going to get some oven mitts, and I'm just going to pour the cooking liquid into our meat pot. That sounds weird. There we go. I'm going to set that to the side. I'll bring that over. Ooh, what do we have? I'll bring this over, turn my burner back off, and now we can add extras to this pot. So we need beer, obviously, and the recipe calls for a light pilsner type of beer. As a non-beer drinker, couldn't tell you what that is. What did I get? I got Heineken because that's what I Googled. Everybody's probably judging me super hardcore, but hey, it is what it is. And we need about 3 cups of this. And each of these cans are about 2 cups. So I'll add 1 can. Ooh, that's quite a bit. And then I'll add a little bit of another can just to kind of top us off. But yeah, we're not going to fit the whole 3 cups, which is fine. It says up to 3 technically. But I'll add a little bit more because we are going to stick this in the oven for a while. So you do kind of want this to be like pretty full just because it is going to evaporate and everything. So there's that. There is our beer. Now I'm going to add in our herbs. This says to add in an herb bouquet, but once again, I couldn't be bothered because I already owned so many of the herbs and they were just, pre-done. So we need thyme and just it's let's read. A half a teaspoon of thyme. So I'm just going to do this and we're going to call that there. And then we need a bay leaf. And I know why they want you to do it in the bouquet, but I don't care if the bay leaf just kind of floats around and the thyme floats around. That doesn't bother me. I don't care if there's little bits of herbs in here. And then we have a little kind of some sad parsley. It's on its last leg, but that'll do us there. And last but not least, we need 2 teaspoons. Let me make sure I read that right. I don't know what's happening. I need 2 tablespoons of brown sugar. I'm just going to eyeball it. I have a dark brown sugar. This calls for a light brown sugar. So I know this is going to be a little bit sweeter, but I'm okay with that. There is that. And then after we have layered everything together, we're going to stir this. Why? To get all of the herbs and everything together, and because that's what the recipe says to do. So I don't really know what the point of layering it was, besides initially making it look nice, but you know, we gotta stir in everything. And this is a little full, but that's okay. Oops. Okay, I'm just gonna call that there. It's not perfectly stirred, but I'm not worried about it. I am gonna add a little bit of salt and pepper, which it doesn't say to do, but I think it'll be helpful. Salt. Oh, I was supposed to salt and pepper the beef when it went into the casserole. Oops. Okay. Well, too bad. I missed that step. That makes more sense. And now we're going to cover and put our trusty Le Creuset pan into the oven for the next 2.5, 3-ish hours. Well, it's time. I went ahead and switched the angle just because I figured you guys don't really need another overhead shot of what's happening. But maybe you did. I went ahead and made some buttered pasta, since that's what I'm going to serve it with. I literally just have butter, some Italian herb seasoning, and garlic in there. Sure, this is a French cookbook, but you know, the Italian herb seasoning's not going to taste bad. So I went ahead and did that. Now let's get this out of the oven. Whew. Okay. So that looks delicious. You guys see what it looks like on here? It's literally just sat it down on the hot burner, of course, but it looks the same pretty much as when it went in. Not that much different. The onions got to cook a little more. But what we're going to do is strain out a lot of the liquid and put it into this pot, and we're going to cook that with some red wine vinegar and arrowroot powder, and get that thick and kind of make that like a sauce. Full disclosure, it's supposed to be white vinegar and not red wine vinegar, but I thought I had regular vinegar and I don't, so we're using red wine vinegar. Whatever. Okay. So I'm just going to scoot this back onto here, and what I'm going to do is take my ladle and see if we can get a lot of the juices out. It says we're supposed to have about 2 cups of juice. Or juice, come on. Oops. 2 cups of this when we're finished. That's not all of the juices out of here, but this is a main portion of the juices. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this on. I have off camera already measured. This is our arrowroot powder. It's about 1.5 tablespoons that are in here. And then this is just the red wine vinegar I have. I've turned my oven. I've turned the burner back on. I'm just going to pour about 2 tablespoons of red wine vinegar in here. We'll see together if we can do it or not. I think that's probably it. And then I'm just going to take a fork and whisk these together. Now you can use cornstarch. I learned after I bought arrowroot, you can use cornstarch in lieu of arrowroot powder. But the cookbook specifically says arrowroot. I don't know if that was something that like was more common back in the day or anything like that. But I am going to, before I put this in, try to find my whisk. I found it. And now I'm just going to kind of bring this back up to heat. There we go. Just reading the recipe, making sure I'm doing it right. I'm going to scoot everything just a smidge. There's our arrowroot powder. And I'm going to go ahead and whisk this in. We just finished simmering this down. We're supposed to have about 2 cups of liquid. We have probably closer to 1.5 cups. It's thicker, but it's not super, super thick. You can see that it still pours really easily. I think the longer that it sits, the thicker it's going to get. But here is our final dish. Like I said, it's just butter noodles and our beer braised beef and onions. I can't tell you how good this smells. It smells so good. So I am going to take a piece, and the beef is like nice and tender. Some of it, a little less tender than, but like super easy to pierce with a fork. I'm trying to get a smaller piece so I can have some noodles with it. Let's try this piece. There we go. Okay. So here's what you got. You can see that the beef is falling apart. It's really not that hard. Fantastic. No notes. I would make this again in a heartbeat. And I wouldn't change anything. That was just so good. I don't think there was really anything weird with the ingredients minus the arrowroot, but I already had that from another recipe. And like I said, you can use cornstarch. So there you go. I even took out the vinegar and replaced it with red wine vinegar. And I think it gives the sauce like a nice little zing at the end. It's the best way I can describe it. Don't come at me. But I really liked this one. It was easy. The prep was an hour, and then it cooked for about 2.5 hours. And you could leave it in there longer if you wanted to. Sure, I did have to buy beer. That's the only thing that I had to buy that was special that I'm kind of trying to figure out what to do with next. But I really like this one. I think for what I think I got to give it a 10. Super easy. Ingredients were super easy to find. It wasn't expensive to make, which coming off the last couple videos is nice. And yeah, I don't know. I really liked this one. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye. I forgot to walk off.